Yo, Elise Stefanik is a beast. We're calling her Elise the Beast.
Elise.
Watch, right? Watch her destroy Adam Schiff. Just basically point out all the times he's been a hypocrite. On one end, he can say and do things when it benefits them, on how on the other end, or Republican representatives can't even ask certain questions at this hearing. Schiff basically is the jerk that we all know he is. My name is Marcus Russell, though.
Alex W, man.
And this is the Marcus Russell Show. Yo, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Check out Bro's page in the description. Let's get right to it.
Since the chairman has gavelled out all of my colleagues with their unanimous consent, I am going to read for the record many of the chairman's comments in September of the importance of hearing from the whistleblower. Again, Ambassador, thank you for your patience, thank you for your service, but since we haven't been able to conduct ourselves in normal procedures, I'm just going to use the 5 minutes for this. September 29th, in the Wall Street Journal, quote, "The whistleblower at the center of the impeachment investigation of President Trump will testify in the House very soon." This is a quote by the chairman. USA Today, September 29th. Talking with ABC News this week, Schiff, the Democrat who chairs the House Intelligence Committee, said the whistleblower would testify very soon. And the only thing standing in the way was getting security clearances for the attorneys representing the whistleblower so they could attend the testimony. From Vox, September 29th, Rep. Adam Schiff said Sunday the whistleblower at the center of a growing scandal surrounding President Donald Trump will testify before the House Intelligence Committee very soon. On CNN, September 29th, Schiff said Sunday on ABC as well as NBC's Meet the Press that he expects the whistleblower to testify very soon. The Washington Post, September 29th. In an appearance on ABC News this week, Schiff echoed Pelosi's message. He also said he expected the Intelligence Committee to hear from the whistleblower very soon, pending a security clearance from Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph McGuire. In the Huffington Post, Schiff told ABC's this week that he expects the whistleblower to appear before this committee very soon. In the New York Post, quote, "We'll get the unfiltered testimony of that whistleblower." In the Washington Times, quote, "That whistleblower will be allowed to come in." These are all quotes from Chairman Adam Schiff. In Talking Points memo, the question was posed, actually this was by George Stephanopoulos, "Have you reached an agreement yet with the whistleblower and his or her attorneys about coming before the committee and providing the information firsthand?" Quote, "Yes, we have," Schiff responded, "and as DNI McGuire promised during the hearing, that whistleblower will be allowed to come in and come in without a minder from the Justice Department or from the White House to tell the whistleblower what they can and cannot say. We'll get the unfiltered testimony of that whistleblower." In Daily Kos, "We're ready to hear from the whistleblower as soon as that is done, and we'll keep obviously riding shotgun to make sure that the acting director doesn't delay in that clearance process." In CNBC, "We'll get the unfiltered testimony of that whistleblower." In Market Watch, House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff said Sunday that an agreement has been reached under which the whistleblower will testify before the committee very soon.
Also, in the Thorntown recorder, Adam Schiff said, "I guarantee that whistleblowing snitch gonna be there or be square." In Beaver Hunt's Furry Kitten edition, Adam Schiff says he will smack that whistleblowing snitch for a honey bun and a pack of Winston's. In Barely Legal, an article called "The High School Athletics Department," Schiff said, "Well, look, you get the point."
100% right, man. This is a complete abuse of power. You know, if we don't stop it now, it will never stop. And this group that are in these politics will get too big, and they will keep running Americans for their pockets and lying to you while they do so.
Right in your face.
Come on, man.
Come on, let's get back to it.
Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. So we got
What he said.
I can keep going, but again, the chairman refused to allow us to put these into the record with unanimous consent. So I've read those out, and as we know, it is important to protect whistleblowers from retaliation and from firing, and we want to make sure whistleblowers are able to come forward. But in this case, the fact that we are getting criticized by Chairman Adam Schiff for statements that he himself made early on in this process shows the duplicity and just the abuse of power that we are continuing to see. With a minute 54 seconds left, I'll yield to my colleague, Mr. Jordan.
I think, but there's still 4 people we've deposed that we have not been able to use see their transcripts, have their transcripts released, and therefore, the testimony they provided we're not able to use in these open hearings. If it's an open hearing, all the available testimony from depositions that has been taken by the committee should be available to be discussed for the American people to see. But no. Mr. Morris and Mr. Hale, and two other, Ms. Williams, two others have, and another one have not yet been released. So I hope the chairman releases that. One other point I would make in the last minute of Ms. Stefanik's time. The Democrats have asserted that this whole thing with Ambassador Yovanovitch was part of some sinister scheme by the White House to get Mr. Zelensky to do an investigation, President Zelensky to do an investigation. If recalling Ambassador Yovanovitch was part of some scheme by Trump and Pompeo and Giuliani to get President Zelensky to do an investigation, why would they replace her with the Democrats' first witness, their star witness, Bill Taylor? I mean, if that's the plan, not the best plan I've ever seen put together. Their star witness, their first witness, Mr. Taylor, was here Wednesday. That's what they were up to? I think it just demonstrates that that is not what went on here. Mr. Zelensky never undertook any investigations, and the reason the aid was released, as we discussed on Wednesday, was because Vice President Pence, Ambassador Bolton, and U.S. senators all talked with President Zelensky, and they were convinced he was the real deal, as the ambassador has alluded to in her testimony. That's why the money was released. That I yield back.
First, most of what the whistleblower has alleged has been corroborated by the witnesses that we have heard from. Second, the president, who my colleagues so shamelessly continue to defend, continue to pressure, threaten, and intimidate the whistleblower. So I'd like unanimous consent to put into the record a September 26, 2019 article from Business Insider. Trump suggested the whistleblower who filed a complaint against him is guilty of treason, which is punishable by death.
Without objection.
How about September 26, 2019, Vanity Fair? Trump suggests executing the whistleblower's sources, like, quote, in the good old days. Third,
Without objection.
September 29th, whistleblower's lawyer raises fear for client safety.
Without objection.
From Axios. Mr. Chairman, the whistleblower has an absolute right to anonymity. The whistleblower's lawyer has said that he fears for his personal safety and will only answer questions now in writing. I wish my colleagues would join me in protecting the whistleblower's right to anonymity. But
Ambassador Yovanovitch, I want to follow up on some of the questions from my colleagues. Some of the early questions seem to suggest that your testimony here was completely irrelevant to the issues at hand. Why are you even here? Isn't this just some small matter that should have been referred to HR? So I want to bring our attention to someone who thought you were actually very important to this whole plot or scheme, and that is the President of the United States. There was only one ambassador, I believe, who was discussed by the President in the July 25th call, and that was you, Ambassador Yovanovitch. And I want to refer back to how you were brought up in that conversation. At one point during the conversation, the President brings up this prosecutor who was very good, and it was shut down, and that's really unfair. And I think you indicated earlier that that was a likely reference to Mr. Lutsenko, the corrupt prosecutor, is that right?
I believe that is the case, but I don't know.
So immediately after the President brings up this corrupt former prosecutor, only one, I'm sorry, my staff has corrected me, only one American ambassador is brought up in the call. Immediately after the President brings up this corrupt prosecutor that he praises and says he was treated very unfairly, he then encourages Zelensky to speak with Giuliani, the guy who orchestrated the smear campaign against you, correct?
Yes.
And he then brings you up. So he praises the corrupt prosecutor. He says, I want you to talk to Giuliani, the guy who smeared you. And then he brings you up. He obviously thought you were relevant to this. But what is even more telling is immediately after he brings you up and says that you, the woman, was bad news, he says there's a lot to talk about Biden's son, that Biden stopped the prosecution, and a lot of people want to find out about that, so whatever you can do with the Attorney General would be great. Immediately after praising this corrupt prosecutor, he attacks you, and then he goes right to Biden. That would indicate to you, wouldn't it, Ambassador, that he connects you somehow with this prosecutor you were at odds with, and his desire to see this investigation of Biden go forward, would it not?
Again, you're absolutely right that that is the thought progression.
My colleagues also asked, in pushing you out of the way, ultimately Ambassador Taylor got appointed. Is Ambassador Taylor the kind of person that would further Giuliani's aims? And I think we can all agree that Ambassador Taylor is a remarkable public servant.
Absolutely.
But what if the president could put someone else in place that wasn't a career diplomat? What if he could put in place, say, a substantial donor to his inaugural? What if he could put in place someone with no diplomatic experience at all? What if he could put in place someone whose portfolio doesn't even include Ukraine? Might that person be willing to work with Rudy Giuliani in pursuit of these investigations?
Yo, I really like that Elise Stefanik part.
Stephanie.
Did you know she was once known for becoming the youngest woman ever elected into Congress? She took office in 2015 at 30 years old. The record was broken by AOC at 29. But anyway, she basically like a bipartisan representative. So when she kept on interrupting Schiff over and over to point out the many ways that he mishandled, you know, the cases that he's been in control of, and releasing published rules that he's broken for the process. She asked, quote, will the chairman continue to stop the questions from Republican representatives? And he didn't answer. He said, the gentlewoman, what did he say? The gentlewoman suspends. He basically called her a man, because I've never heard of a gentlewoman.
Yeah.
For real. Let's wrap this up.
Yeah, maybe.
That's exactly what happened, wasn't it?
Yes.
And my colleagues also say, well, the security assistance ultimately went through. So if they sought to condition or bribe Ukraine into doing these investigations by withholding security assistance, they ultimately paid the money. Are you aware, Ambassador, that the security assistance was not released until after a whistleblower complaint made its way to the White House?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Are you aware that it was not released until Congress announced it was doing an investigation?
Yes, I'm aware of that.
And finally, I want to ask you about the call record that my colleague read at the outset. I'm curious about this. And just for people watching at home so they're not confused, there are two calls here. There's the perfunctory congratulatory call after Zelensky is inaugurated, which my ranking member read this morning. And then there's, of course, the very problematic call in July. And one of the reasons we are here is what happened between April and July. But there was a readout put out by the White House at the time the April congratulatory call was made. And the White House readout said that the president discussed with Zelensky helping Ukraine root out corruption. Now that, in fact, doesn't appear anywhere in that call. So I want to ask you, Ambassador, why would the White House put out an inaccurate reading? Why would the White House represent that the president said something about corruption when he said nothing about corruption in that call or, in fact, in the one in July?
I can't answer that question. I don't have visibility into that.
I thank you. I yield now 5 minutes now to recognize the ranking member.
I just remind the gentleman there's actually 3 calls. There's the 2 calls with President Trump and the one that you reiterated in our last hearing a couple of weeks ago. Ambassador, I just want to clarify something before I yield. Are you against political appointed ambassadors? Is it not the president's prerogative to appoint whoever he wants in any country?
First of all, I am not against political ambassadors, just to be clear.
I just wanted to clear that up. Now, can I yield to Ms. Stefanik? Do I need your permission?
Yeah, we really need to do something in politics about people misappropriating their positions. You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying? Weaponizing the FBI for for political gain, for campaign purposes. And now that we're draining the swamp, even bipartisan people like Elise the Beast are trying to point out to America, look what they're doing behind closed doors.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that she was saying about the chairman threatening or promising whistleblowing witnesses or threatening witnesses, it's illegal,
Yeah.
literally. you know.
There's
And
a lot of snakes, a lot of rats, and a lot of unloyal alligators in this swamp, and a lot of them are starting to show their face. I don't know if you guys notice, but some bad things are about to happen to these people that did bad things to the American people.
that part,
So I need you guys hit the subscribe button, check out my channel description,
what he said,
and just answer these questions that we asked throughout the video.
that part.